Hey, what's going on? It is Fabrizio. Welcome to the YouTube channel that is unnamed at the moment. But I am Fabrizio Elo, creator of Horace H. Hoover, comics book from Alterna Comics. Currently, issue 1 and 2 are available for sale, and I'm going to be doing some inking tonight. So I have this drawing that I started a while ago. These are kind of like concept art, basically. So I use this as a sort of an experiment. Kind of play around with characters and settings, and without too much stress as far as incorporating it into a book. So that's what I'll be doing tonight. And any questions, let me know. Oh, mine title. How's it going? Hey, I read the first book. It's excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah. The first issue was fun. Hopefully it's a good starting point for the rest of the series. When you get into issue 2, you'll kind of see, where issue 1 sort of laid the groundwork for the other issues moving forward. So I'll be working on this. I don't know if I'll be able to finish this tonight. I'll be streaming for about an hour, but any questions, technical and otherwise, just let me know. I'm going to throw some background music on. If anything's too loud or too quiet, let me know. So, yeah, I said this was concept art, which means really for this kind of stuff, I don't think too hard on who this character is. I'm hoping that essentially through the drawing, I'll kind of get a feel for the character, background, name, things like that. So I don't spend too much time really trying to figure out that ahead of time. I tend to write visually, so once I have the visual side down, it's a lot easier for me to write the story in the background. And as far as actual technique and approach, this is going to be pretty loose compared to my other stuff. Again, I just trying to think of it as like concept art, so I'm not going to get too crazy with it. But I do find that allowing yourself a little bit of experimentation can help a lot with your normal style. So if you do a really tight style a lot, doing a little looser, more expressive kind of inking helps your technical style and vice versa. So that's what this was. It's concept art, and it's kind of changing things up a little bit. I'm really big on size relations, so I like that this guy's big, much bigger than Horace H. Hoover, but he's not a giant. He's just very large. It is just immediately like you get a sense of scale and threat whenever you just bump up somebody's size. The other thing I'm going to do with this drawing in particular is make sure that it's readable in a finished drawing as a black and white drawing. A lot of times I plan on coloring the work that I do, so that actually dictates sort of how much detail, grayscale that I put into it, things like that. So for this, I really want it to work as a black and white image, just black and white. So I'll definitely be putting some grayscale in areas that I typically wouldn't, because the grayscale will basically fight with the colors sometimes. Mine tunnel. Do you draw from memory or photography? Memory. I don't want to say I never use PhotoRef, but It's extraordinarily rare. Whenever I use photo reference, you can tell, or I'll tell you. I'll show you real quick here. I started this drawing last week or sometime. So this looks like it's from photo reference, and that's the intent. I really wanted to do a really technical illustration. So you can really tell the difference whenever I'm doing photo reference or from memory, or imagination, I should say. Yeah, people that use a lot of photo reference in comics, it's a little confusing to me because that's going to take twice as long to do the drawings. And it's going to really confine your creativity, I think. I mean, unless you're Alex Ross and you can take a photograph for every single panel and you can have people pose for every single panel, it's tough. So, you really got to be careful not to rely on photo reference too much. But I think it's good for learning and studying and getting better, but I don't think it's great for actually creating comics and pages for me. And plus the type of drawings I like and the type of comics I like are rarely photo real. I like the cartoonist aspect of inking and drawing, so that's why I don't use it. You just you pick your artist and the books and the periods that you like, and you try to get close to that. I think that's sort of everybody's goal. And I'm big on like 80s, 70s, 80s comics. And again, since this is going to be a really loose drawing, I'm not worried too much about, drawing every single brick or making sure that all the lighting is right. It's really just about the main characters, Horace and this giant guy, and then a little bit of a background for a setting, but nothing too crazy. A lot of people honestly wouldn't even do a background. They would probably just do some vague abstract shapes, but I always feel like I need something just to give a setting. So for this, it's like maybe a church or some sort of very old piece of architecture, at least. Because I want to know, is it sci-fi? I do need that setting. I think, as a reader too, you wanna know what are you looking at. Since it's not a full story, the background's going to give you some information. Now, if this was in a comic, dialogue and narration, that'll give you all the information you need. And I keep hitting the mic with this brush. Typically what I'll do is sort of outline everything first, not in a very tedious kind of, not in a technical way, but I'll just get lines in place. So whenever I throw a little bit of detail, I kind of have a structure already set. Like these bricks in perspective, you don't want to get it too wrong, so getting a few lines down early will help flesh that out. I may try to do some watercolor with this too. I did some watercolor sketch cards the other night. Turned out really nice. So we'll see. We'll see how this is Eon board. We'll see how this paper handles watercolor. I've done a little bit of watercolor on the Strathmore that I use for penciling, but not the Eon boards. These are just really slick for inking. So we'll see. And you're going to see a very loose version of my drawing. Do you know any good alien comic books or paperbacks? I want to make an alien movie. Alien comics. It's a good one. Paperbacks, not really. Geez. I guess I never thought about that before. I mean, the only thing that comes to mind is the Alien adaptation comic book from Walt Simonson. But outside of that, I'm blanking on a comic book with an alien. I guess it depends, your definition of alien and all that kind of stuff. But I guess I don't know if I've ever read any. Admittedly, that's not really generally my genre. I like crime. I'm big on crime. Just I like crime, and if it's a superhero book nowadays, it has to be like an interesting spin and take on it, or a very classic spin or take, one or the other. I don't want to see superheroes not acting like superheroes. If you're going to do a superhero book, then do a superhero book. Yeah, I can't think of any aliens. It's a good question, to be honest. So you can see I penciled in like a really dark eyeball for him, but I think that was too dark. I might come back to that, but we'll see. All right, so we have some wall in the back. We got that done. Kind of having a hard time reaching the top of the paper, but we'll see. Now, something like this, it would probably serve me well to grab some reference. If this was like a final sort of illustration instead of concept art. The concept art, I think, can give you a good direction on where to look for reference. Once you sort of get a feel for the architecture and the time period, etc., then you're like, okay, so that's medieval, so I'll Google some images of medieval architecture or Renaissance, etc., etc. So I look at it like that. So this is just a starting point for the final drawing. So I don't get too caught up. His face is getting a little lost compared to the background. So that means I got to go in and make his hair darker, bring the value down on his face a little bit. Good thing is for an old guy, you can't well, I shouldn't say you can't overwork it, but it's pretty hard. There's always crevices and wrinkles and shadows and something. I think I'll be able to finish this evening. Get a good idea of it, and then once I have an idea of the character and the setting, then the next time I sort of sit down and need to write a Horace H. Hoover story, I can kind of have this in my head while I'm writing. It doesn't mean I'll use it next time, but maybe the time after that, maybe the time after that. So having a lot of these like little sketches of scenes and characters, very useful. Captain Goodnight, how's it going? Alterna has a couple titles in their dollar bin with aliens, Eden and Elysium. I've not read either of those, but those are awesome recommendations. It's really funny. Yeah, aliens aren't it's not something I always gravitate toward unless it's like Egyptian ancient aliens. For some reason, that I find endlessly fascinating, but just straight old aliens, I guess, I don't know. It's not something I really got into. I do like this guy. I really need to pop his head forward, so I'm really going to basically just make this whole back wall mostly black with just a few lines to suggest like the tops of bricks and whatnot. His head was just getting lost. Plus, we don't need, the background in this particular scenario is not descriptive too much. It's not, normally I would hide a bunch of stuff back there and be really detailed as far as time period and writing and all that kind of stuff. But for this, we can black it out. I always love the phrase, if you can't figure it out, black it out. That's a classic one. I don't ascribe to that, but I do see it sometimes, for sure. I might do is, essentially I'm being real loose with a brush right now, and I could probably essentially take a micron later on and go in and straighten up all the edges and make sure that there's a gradient and they have cast shadows and all that kind of stuff. We'll see. I don't know if it's worth it, to be honest. I guess it'll depend. Yeah, so you can see just by making that background black, parts of it at least, it definitely shifted the weight of the whole image. So before it was a very light image and things kind of floated, but once you start throwing some really heavy blacks in, it can weight the drawing. Hey, Metatron's Cube, how's it going? Let me just hide this in shade. Bottle of yeah. That, that is a tried and true trick, without a doubt. Almost to the point where I feel guilty sometimes whenever I put things in shadow. But then I have to tell myself, things do look cool in shadow too sometimes. But I always picture somebody saying, "Oh, yeah, he couldn't figure out how to draw that hand, so he threw it in shadow." But yeah, that definitely looks better. Hey, Dr. Mask, how's it going? Thanks for popping in. Still don't have a name for my streaming. I really need a name. That first 3 minutes when I start the YouTube channel stream, I'm always so weird. I don't know if I was told this story or not, but I was thinking back. I had a podcast. This is many, many years ago, probably 10 years ago or something. Basically, when podcast kind of started, as a spoof, I did a podcast called "What is Fabrizio Drinking?" It was about 20 seconds long, and I just played a little music, said what I was drinking, and then ended the podcast. But that was an easy title. It was perfect. It was so descriptive. But this, I don't know. It's a lot harder. Metatron, no, it has to be a giant black mass. I've seen it in older comics. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is Mignola's ultimate appeal, like his ability to have so much black and still be descriptive is, I think it's unique to him. I'm trying to think of another artist that really goes as far as he does. I mean, outside of like Sin City, but that's different in my book. Dr. Mask, an artist I'm friends with, did a Punisher story with a scene in a bar. He drew every glass in the rack and the inker just blacked it all out. Ouch. That hurts. That hurts. I guess that's one of the benefits of me doing the penciling and the inking. I get to make that call. But if somebody else made that call for me, oof, that'd be tough. Mind Tunnel, do you do this full-time or work in a different field part-time? I do not do this full-time. I am a programmer full-time. I do games and apps and things like that. I've done that for quite a long time. So this is just in my spare time. I write, draw, ink, color, and letter Horace H. Hoover. So when I say spare time, I mean the moments I'm not sleeping. This is faster, Anchor. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think if there's moments whenever I'm inking my pencils and I'm like, I'm just gonna block it out. But I know the hard work I had to do in the penciling, so it's a lot harder when you're the one, that library scene, for example. Yeah, I had to draw every book, in perspective. So the idea that somebody would go in and black that out, wow, that I can't even imagine that. Fabrizio's Fantastic Voyages. I like it. Fabrizio's Fantastic Voyages. That's easy to remember, too. I have been thinking about essentially just having a new name each time. So whoever suggests something, I'll just use that name for the next time. So it could be like the ever-changing YouTube channel. There's also the reverse. The penciler will do real unfinished stuff and leave it to the inker. Yeah, I think Jim Lee's kind of famous for that, like him and Scott Williams. And Scott, like he'll just do kind of sketched in debris or something, and Scott Williams will go in and write, do every like little rock or that's tough. I've never inked somebody's pencils before. I think it would be fun. Maybe I'll try that one of these days. Dr. Mask and creates his own trailers. I do. They just take so much time. But I have been fortunate in that, I program, but I've done motion graphics in 3D. So fortunately, my day job has provided me with some opportunity to do some useful skills that come into play for the comic book, or marketing at least, not necessarily the comic book. The trailer was a lot of fun to do. Breakdowns, baby. And 3D, yeah. I should be jumping back on Rob's stream probably this week to keep working on his Chiron Morville. I was in Baltimore for Comic-Con, and then I had another trip. It just seems like I was all over the place for a few weeks, so I'll get back to that. I'm excited to finish that up. I think I should finish it up pretty quickly. So, and then I think I briefly talked to Pete about this, but would really like to do 3D sculpts for all of the alternate characters. I don't know how long that'll take, et cetera, but if I do a little bit at a time, kind of make my way through some characters, having them all in 3D would be really cool. So yeah, that black really did help out, huh? I think I'll show a before and after for this drawing. That should help out a lot. It's very easy to imply detail with a brush quickly, especially like ornate things, So if I wanted to do, we'll see if this works out, but if not, I'll black it out. So if I wanted to do like an ornate frame or something, brushes are really great for that because you can just really quickly go thick, thin into the black. And it works as like a real quick detail. Hard making time for these things when you have a full-time job. Yeah, it is. But it's definitely worth it whenever I see people jump on Twitter and tell me they just read Horace H. Hoover, got to the library scene. The library scene in Horace H. Hoover 2, like, to me was, because I did it a while ago, you spend a lot of time doing something like that, and you just don't know if people are gonna, not that they're gonna hate it, it's not like anybody's gonna open it up like, this is dumb, but you just don't know the reaction, if they're gonna like it as much as you hope they do. And that's really cool, seeing that finally. Seeing people's reaction to that's really cool. Who's this gentleman with Horace, or is it a secret? So this is kind of what I was referring to as like my almost concept art. I do a bunch of these kind of drawings where I'm just starting with shapes, characters, and scenes, and then I kind of start carving out, their clothing and tattoos and their face and the background, and then I use this essentially to create the character. I do this a lot. I don't really do it on streams very much, but I have like stacks and stacks of drawings like this. That way, whenever I sit down to write, I can just pull these out. I'm like, does that, when I see this particular scene with Horace and this character, does it evoke anything? Like, or I can just put it back on the pile and pull it out again whenever I'm, looking at the next story. So I actually try not to write too much of a story at this point. At this point, it's really just visuals. Although I do have a sense of the character. I'm not sure how it fits into the story, the world, everything I have planned just yet. But to be honest, that's the fun part. Like, it's almost like when I'm doing the concept art and characters like this, it's like getting a new G.I. Joe figure, and you're just not sure how you want to play with this guy yet. Is he going to be a good guy, a bad guy? So he's still in the box, so to speak. Yeah, so that's really how I write a lot of times. I will just sit with a sketchbook and start drawing. And then something will click, then I'll stop and I'm okay, this guy, he does this and he's from there and he met Horace, doing this. So it's sort of like a back and forth between the visual and the writing, the visual and the writing. So we will have a Horace H. Hoover concept book in the future. Heck yeah. I mean, if people want that, that's the one thing I have plenty of. I will say quite a few of them have been making their way into the stories. Because again, it's rare that I'll sit down and just draw like a regular quote-unquote character. So they always have something visually interesting about them, and because of that, it's a lot easier to write. I know I haven't really sold any full-page illustrations yet. Well, actually, that's not right. I think I might have sold one at an auction. But I'm probably going to do more of that. And selling these concept art pieces would be really fun, I think. If people are into them. I don't know if it's less cool that he's not actually in a story yet. I don't know. Maybe I'll wait until he actually shows up in a story and then pull it out. I love that behind the scenes stuff. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff too. Movies, books, all of that stuff is it's really interesting to me. I think because I like watching that stuff, I kind of think about that stuff beforehand, and that's why I put so many Easter eggs, you know, in the backgrounds, and I'm referencing, you know, real books or real names or something like that. Just because I know how fun it is as a reader and a viewer to come across that stuff. Yeah, so I'm still being pretty loose with the brush here. I will probably come back into it with a micron and clean some stuff up. Even though I said I was going to be really loose, this is just a little, even for concept art, I'm just feeling a little anxious about how loose it is. Captain Goodnight looks like he's about the same size as Giant Paul. Are they the same species? They are not. He's bigger. Not much, but he's definitely bigger. I should actually have them stand next to each other. Yeah, I mean, I will do a like a character sheet at some point in time before I use him, because I want to make sure that his entire body is essentially fleshed out before I get into the comic, because you get into the comic and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I don't know what kind of shoes he wears, or like, does he have short legs or long legs? You know, that kind of thing. The brickwork looks great. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's pretty sloppy, but sometimes for brickwork that actually can work in your favor. Yeah, so what I'll have to do when I'm done with this, like outlining stages, I'll definitely put a bunch of black behind Horace, so then he pops, just like I made the giant pop by putting a bunch of black on him. Basically, the oldest trick in the book is, if you want something to pop, if it's light, put black, and if it's black, put white. You want the highest parts of contrast essentially against each other. So if we take his head here, you'll see that this is white, a highlight. Then we have black here, but in the back we have black, and then I have white there. And you kind of bounce back and forth that way. And it's just an old trick, painting, drawing. And the thing is, you're kind of messing with light, but ultimately that's okay. As long as the effect is what you're going for, and he's popping forward and the story's being told, it's okay to play around with shading and lighting for a bunch of reasons. One of them being, not every area is going to have a single light source. In fact, it's extraordinarily rare for that to be the case. So our eyes kind of expect multiple light sources, unless you're doing like a Caravaggio painting or something like that. So it's okay to have more than one light source, and you just kind of assuming, I'm like, okay, I really want light over here. I'm gonna make it light there, and so ultimately you just added a new light source. If that makes any sense. So I'll definitely be putting black behind Horace. Maybe I won't be able to finish this today. I don't know. We'll see. I was saying that I want to make sure that this works as a black and white drawing completely. So I won't be coloring it. At least traditionally. Well, traditionally. I won't be doing comic book coloring. I may do some watercolor coloring. So I can't leave everything up to a certain stage. It has to work on its own as a black and white image. Like, these bricks have no texture right now. It's just black and white. So I'm definitely going to need to go in and put a bunch of texture on that. I got some more updates on the Horace H. Hoover resin sculpture. They're currently being put into packs, sets, sanded and primed, ready for shipment to me. This is from the UK, so I'm not sure how long that's going to take, to be honest, but I will keep everybody apprised. It's a lot of fun. It looks great. And I don't know if I mentioned this before, but I got 20 painted and 10 unpainted. So if you like doing resin model kits, you can do your own. If not, you'll have a finished resin model that you can purchase. And I think the height is 5 inches, 5.5. I'll have to double check on that. I'm running out of space. Both Giant Paul and Bookbug were surprised HHH was able to hurt them. Were they just overconfident, or does HHH have some special ability? Well, yes. Yeah, I mean, Horace H. Hoover has some abilities. That is... I don't think it's a spoiler if I tell you that. I just won't say exactly what just yet. We'll definitely learn of that, though. And we will be learning with Horace H. Hoover. So he will also be surprised, that he has certain abilities, how he got the abilities, and what he can do. That'll be in the ongoing series, so that definitely won't be in the 5-issue miniseries. But that's one of the things I'm most excited about, is to get to that part. Any thoughts on doing an 8-page story for it came out on a Wednesday, or just don't have the bandwidth? I've definitely been looking at that watercolor, and I like it so much. I have some ideas for some short stories. I really do, that I think would be perfect in that style and perfect where it came out on a Wednesday. But I have to think about how that would work exactly. Yeah, I definitely need to do that watercolor, though. We'll see. I don't want to switch during the miniseries, so a short story would be perfect, but the short story might have to wait until after issue 5 comes out. Yeah, I have some short stories that I wrote down quite a while ago, and they just work on their own. You don't need to know anything else. I mean, you may wonder why Horace H. Hoover has a vacuum cleaner as a helmet, but they still work as just regular old ghost stories, occult sort of mysteries. Okay, so I need to... here. All right, so at this point, I've kind of left the bottom white just because it's hard to reach. So I definitely need to finish that up, because if not, I'll be working too much on this part, and it just won't have the right balance of black and white. So I got to get this bottom part done. Again, if there's any part of the whole drawing that you can leave rough and loose and just, it's this part, right? It's at the bottom, behind the main character. It's really the least important. That's not to say it's unimportant, but it's just not that important for this particular piece of concept art. If you go online and you Google concept art, I don't know if for characters, it's rare that you'll see backgrounds and interactions. Usually it's just one character, and their particular style of dress, and you get some information that way. But the fact that the first drawing of this character is with Horace H. Hoover gives you way more information than you would normally have for a concept art. Dr. Mask, it was cool seeing the Tinseltown short and when Dave collected the mini, he threw the story in there. Yeah, that's great. I really do love that idea. I mean, if I can, not if, but it's more like a when I think I can do it. And it could be one of those deals where, if it's 8 pages or something like that, I could do a page once in a while in tandem while I'm working on issues 3, 4, and 5. And that might work out really well, just because you want to take a break sometimes and switch things up. So that might work out really well. Yeah, I love Tinseltown. I was trying to think of the first Alterna book I read. Tinseltown, I think, was the second. The first one was that it had Tesla. I can't think of the name of it. I think that was the very first one I read. But Tinseltown was right after that, which I loved. All the greats learned what they could leave out and let the eye fill in. Yeah, that is the ultimate. Like, when you get to that point, I mean, I'm a huge David Mazzucchelli fan, and I feel like he really learned that. I mean, especially in Batman Year One, but I mean, his Daredevil stuff is brilliant too. I would say he's in my top 5 artists of all time, comic book artists. Even though he didn't do a ton of Marvel and mainstream stuff, he ended up doing different kinds of stuff. But man, the stuff he did do, huge influence on me. Yeah, so all of this is going to be basically black. Just with the tops of some of the bricks, just to show that there is something there. Again, this is a lot of work for concept art. But, it's hard. It's really hard to just do concept art that's devoid of a setting and character, and for me at least, it's really hard because I don't think like that. Everything has context for me. So even when I'm trying to just come up with a character and what they wear and the setting, it just inevitably turns into something else. Feast or Famine, that was it. Yep. That was a good book. I liked that. It was great art. I always know when it's time to stop inking, when my brush is just junky. Really, it just starts drying on me. And I could wash it out. So it was a good time to stop too. I'm almost at an hour. I'll probably stop it at an hour though. So it doesn't look like I'll finish this, but I'll get really far as the major shapes and values. And next time I'll go in and I'll basically clean it up. I'm still going to try to keep it looser than I usually do, but maybe a little bit of white, maybe splatter. Man, I don't know. I am not a splatter guy. It'd be fun to try, that's for sure. Yeah, it was a good book. It's funny. There's certain characters, people, I should say, that instantly make good characters of comics. You throw Lovecraft in a story, or Tesla, or Einstein, or something like that, and it just becomes fun. It's almost like, I don't want to say you can't mess it up, but there's really a lot to play with already there for you. Save splatter for some violence. Yeah. Again, this is concept art that I want to not take too seriously, so I can experiment, but I don't know if it really applies in this particular scenario. I could do is put some splatter on the bricks just for texture. See what that looks like. Possibly. I don't know. We shall see. And see how that really pops his body there. I'll zoom out at the end, but sometimes it doesn't refocus and then it loses everything. So if you got a white edge to the character that you need to pop forward, then put some black, and vice versa. So I have a little bit of black here on his pouch, so I'll actually leave next to him. I won't leave it white, but I'll just do maybe some texture there. Here's the great thing about brick. You don't have to be super diligent about making sure everything's precise. Maybe this particular universe, the bricklayers were pretty shoddy at their job. That's always a possibility. A pocket universe of shoddy builders, right? For some strange reason, this paper is kind of acting a little strange right now. I use this Eon board because it's real smooth, but maybe it's the ink. Hey Blake, how's it going? Yeah, it's really old brick. The cool thing is, okay, so this is concept art. I have a big character, I have Horace, I have a setting kind of. And now those are basically questions that I asked. Who is this guy? What is he wearing? Why is this weird thing around his neck? Why are they in this old kind of castle-y looking thing? It just makes the writing easier because the visuals set up the questions. And now as a writer, I'm like, okay, what if this? What if this guy is... I don't want to answer right now, but yeah, the visuals set up the questions, and then it just makes the writing that much easier. You'll have falling down buildings on every page. Yeah, and I won't explain it either. It'll just be in the background. You'll see buildings just crumbling all the time. So if you see up here, you have giant white space. And even though I put brick texture, it's just a lot of white, right? This looks good. The balance between this black and his face looks good. Yep, this looks good here. It's this balance between black and white in and out that you got to look for. This looks good. But when you get up here, now there's two things I can do with it. One is I can put a bunch of texture, gray value, or I can just not pretend, but I can add let's just say there's a light source, and that light source is casting a shadow sort of at an angle. And that angle will give you, it'll help with the composition too. So now you're using light as a way to balance the black and white composition, but also a way to angle the viewer's eye back into the drawing. This is going to be really rough. Again, I'll clean this up later with microns, but just so you see what I'm saying. And this is a Mignola thing for sure. He'll just put a diagonal in the background, and that's his shadow. Yeah, so if I do this, we just assume that there's a light source up here, and now it balances out that huge white space. Definitely need to clean this up later, which is okay. I can take a pen, like a white gel pen, and go back into the black if I need to, or some acrylic or something. Again, it's brick, so it doesn't have to be precise, but just to kind of show that diagonal. And it also, one other thing it does is show form. So now, as the light comes across, it can show the shape of this sort of like bowed out column. So that just that one shape has a lot of job, has a lot of value in helping the drawing. Alrighty, I think I'm about ready here. We're at an hour. Usually an hour is a good time to call it. So let's kind of look at this again. We made quite a bit of progress. Now I still might put some black here to make sure his shoulder and neck pop as well. But you can see things actually look like they have depth, and characters are popping forward. Backgrounds are still just enough detail so it doesn't look fake, but not too much to distract. And again, I'll go in with a micron and a gel pen and kind of clean this up next time. Actually turned out pretty nice. I'm digging this. Metatron's cube. Now you're just going crazy. Light sources from nowhere. Rules are being broken. Yeah, but like, look how much better that looks. It's fine. It's totally fine. I mean, and technically, so I mean, if we really want to think this through, if you have a light source coming from over here, it could be catching on something up here. He's casting the shadow, so it still makes sense. But it's really whatever makes the drawing work, I'm cool with. One day I said, you know what would really make this drawing work? A guy with a vacuum cleaner on his head. And that's how we got Horace H. Hoover. So once you start with guy with a vacuum cleaner on his head, all bets are totally off. I don't think there's anything. I don't think there's nothing off the table. Yeah, so everything's weighted down here. I'll probably put a little bit of detail there. Cool. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Just white gel pen. Do people still use whiteout pens? I don't use whiteout. I know some people do that. I'll use either acrylic or gouache or gel pen or something like that for whites. But to be honest, I rarely use white. I'm a big proponent of, if I can't do it in black, I don't do it. But I'm kind of playing around with this, so I will experiment, and you guys will hopefully be around for that. Where can we check out what games you've worked on? So I feel like I've mentioned this, but I apologize if so the games that I work on they're like proprietary games for pharmaceutical companies or big corporations. There'll be conventions the companies will have, and they'll get a booth, a large booth, and they'll do games. a one-off weekend game of a racing game, or it could be a quiz, or it can be anything really, 2D, 3D, whatever. But that's basically what I do. So a lot of the games nobody will ever know or see unless you're in that industry, like a pharmaceutical, veterinarian, things like that. So unfortunately, those are the kind of games I work with. It's fun though, because instead of working on one game for 2 years or an app for 2 years, I'll work on one for a month or two, and then I get to work on another one and another one. So the turnaround's a lot faster, but because of that, your skills kind of go through the roof, because it's really iteration on games where you learn instead of just slowly working on one for a couple of years. So unfortunately, I don't have any AAA games to my name, but I've been doing it for many, many years. I use Unity, if anybody's interested. I might do some game stuff on a random YouTube Saturday morning, since I've been playing around with doing a Horace H. Hoover game. So maybe I'll do a little tutorial if anybody's interested, or at least checking out what I'm working on. Anyway, thanks everybody. I appreciate you for popping in. I'll probably do another stream this week and hopefully finish this out, and we'll go from there. Thanks everybody. I will talk to you later. Evening. Bye.